Hey everyone, my name is Fatih Degirmenci. I work for Ericsson Software Technology as open source developer. As part of my assignments, I contribute to various upstream projects such as Continuous Delivery Foundation, Nordics, and sometimes to Eiffel community as well. But I want to give a quick heads up to an idea that came up recently during our discussions within Nordics community, which we call Eiffel GitHub action. But before perhaps talking about the Eiffel GitHub action and what that idea is about, it would make sense to give you some kind of overview about what kind of environment we are working in within Nordics community. So Nordics community is an open source community established about 2.5 years ago in order to increase the collaboration between organizations located in Nordics region. And Nordics community is like any other community providing infrastructure, tooling support, CI/CD pipeline supports, and upstream support for the contributors who may be working various communities such as OpenStack, Kubernetes, Open Network Automation Platform, and so on. And as part of our work within Nordics community, we provide the infrastructure support as well as support developers to contribute or make their contributions to upstream communities based on their needs. And as I mentioned, the communities we interface with are multiple, and those communities are using different tools and technologies to host their code or run their CI/CD pipelines. And some of those communities are using GitHub as their SCM system and for CI/CD for collaboration purposes. And some other communities are using Git, such as OpenStack and Linux Foundation projects. And since Nordics aims to enable contributors from member organizations to contribute to upstream projects, we mirror those repositories from upstream organizations into Nordics. And when it comes to GitHub-based projects such as Kubernetes or cloud-native technologies, we have a Nordics organization on GitHub, and we fork the upstream repositories from their organizations into Nordics organization. So the contributors working with the Nordics community could use those forks to send pull requests to upstream communities. And when it comes to upstream projects using Git, we have a Git instance for Nordics community. We mirror repositories from upstream into Nordics, so our developers contributing to Nordics could work in Nordics community. Why we are doing this? Why our developers or Nordics community contributors are not working directly in upstream communities? Because sometimes some of the features our developers may be developing are not ready to be submitted as a proposal to upstream communities. So our developers need to start their work in prototype fashion in Nordics organization. And once they feel ready and comfortable, they send those contributions to upstream communities for review and testing. Another reason why we have Nordics hosted repositories is that sometimes upstream communities do not have sufficient resources to do CI/CD and testing and so on. And we simply provide the contributors of Nordics community with additional resources and capabilities to extend the upstream pipeline, so the feature-specific testing can be done in Nordics community. And on this slide, in the middle, you see Nordics with our forks and mirrors. On left-hand side, we have upstream projects or repositories coming from various open source communities. And on the right-hand side, as I mentioned, Nordics community has various members, and Ericsson is one of them. And we enable those organizations to consume these open source technologies via Nordics as well, because sometimes some of these features developed by Nordics contributors do not end up in upstream in any given time or in fast enough fashion. So the organizations may need to access those features as early as possible. And the problem here, the initial problem we are facing is that because we interface with multiple upstream communities who use different tools and technologies as part of their day-to-day work, we need to establish communication between Nordics and upstream communities. And if you think in GitHub terms, we need to create hooks on all these upstream repositories we are forking within Nordics organization so we can trigger our CI/CD pipelines. When it comes to open source projects using Gerrit, we need to again establish communication to all those Gerrit instances belonging to upstream committees to establish streaming, Gerrit event streaming from those repositories to Nordics, so we can sync the repos, sync our mirrors against upstream communities. And as I attempted to highlight here, these webhooks from GitHub or Gerrit stream events, they are all different ways of, passing information from upstream communities back to Nordics. And this has been working fine, but since we are scaling up and we are adding more and more projects, it becomes a bit tiring to go and manually fix those things in upstream communities and implement some custom workarounds within Nordics to somehow standardize how we are consuming those events coming from GitHub or Gerrit. And for example, in future, we may have projects hosted on GitLab as well. And the other problem is that we want to establish standardized means for our member organizations to get whatever things you may need from Nordics in standardized way. And Eiffel could help in this context as both Nordics and upstream relations and Nordics and organization relations point of view. And we know that Eiffel community has a plugin for Gerrit, so we intend to use that Eiffel plugin on our Nordics Gerrit instance. But when we looked at if there is something available for GitHub, we couldn't find anything in Eiffel community. And that gave us an idea to start playing with GitHub Actions. As you know, you can rely on GitHub a lot for having your organization make contributions and run CI/CD pipelines. But when it comes to extending the capabilities offered by GitHub, you need to rely on your organization's or community's infrastructure. And Actions is not sufficient in that case, because you need to take that piece of code, for example, commit back to your community and run additional stuff in your community. And we, as I said, we have been using webhooks that has been working fine. But again, it is pretty difficult to maintain all those GitHub webhooks because things change on GitHub. And based on that idea or those concerns, we started playing with GitHub Actions and to see if we can have some translation mechanism between GitHub webhook payloads and Eiffel events. And this is the outcome of that quick trial. And just a heads up, I am not a GitHub Actions expert. This is very silly and quick attempt to see if it works. And we conclude that this seems to be a promising idea to socialize within Eiffel community further. And just a quick demo, I'm not going to run anything, but just an example here. I have a few commits here. And when I send a commit, in a pull request manner, I have possibility to publish an Eiffel source code source change proposed event. And in this case, that was skipped. So we don't publish anything because this was a direct push. And in that case, we publish an Eiffel source change submitted event. And what we do as part of this GitHub GitHub action, we simply use the provided resources from GitHub, which is basically a container image. We start that container and we simply generate our event using the payload from GitHub, and then use a REM deployment we brought up within Nordics community and send that event to our Nordics flow execution manager Jenkins via REM publish. And then we simply get this connection from GitHub to our Jenkins instance standardized via Eiffel events. And this is valid to Gerrit as well. If we use Gerrit's Eiffel plugin, for example, we will be able to publish Eiffel source change submitted events when a change gets merged, and we can have some standardized, handling of the source code change events in Eiffel community. And in future, we are thinking of extending this by employing artifact related events as well. but from GitHub Actions perspective, it looks like it would be valuable to have a GitHub action provided by Eiffel community for anyone who is using Eiffel. So I want to stop here before taking our whole meeting. But the question I want to ask to the community is that would this be something valuable to discuss further within community, either during regular bi-weekly meetings or during TC meetings? And any questions? I can stop here.
I certainly think this looks very interesting. And I think we should continue investigating this a bit more. That looks great. I have one question. You now, in your small demo, you tried out the source change submitted and source change created event, I believe. Do you see any need for additional source change events as well for the mirroring or the fork updates, let's say, on your end? Or do you think it's enough with those two events when it comes to the source change actions?
Yeah, when I look at how the contributors working within Nordics community and the communities we are interfacing with, the two main things that happen within the community is based on sources, source change create event and source change submit event. From GitHub context, people generally send pull requests, and those pull requests could be accepted or declined, rejected. And when they get accepted, they are merged, which results in Eiffel change, source change submit event. So source change create event and source change submit event set looks like sufficient for time being. Once this is an outcome of a day's try, we may find some other corner cases which may require us to discuss this further to see if there are other types of events necessary or not.
Yeah.
But yes.
There will be a session tomorrow about the source change events that we currently have, the two ones we just mentioned, where we might discuss additional source change, for example, a source change updated event or something like that, which could be sent then when an additional commit is added to a pull request or when some comment is added or something else like that. So if you're interested in that discussion, you can join as well on tomorrow's discussion about source change events. But that was my question. Magnus, do you have any questions or?
No, I just wanted to say that we're definitely interested. We are GitHub users as well, and would especially be interested since we are going to integrate build products using both Gerrit and GitHub source code, so to speak. So this would definitely be interesting. I think there are tons of corner cases involved here, so it probably won't be easy to get it right, but it's great that there's something to start with.
And the other idea could be like using Eiffel for Eiffel community as well. Like if we bring up an Eiffel domain for Eiffel community in open source, for example, we can simply use an Eiffel action, GitHub action for Eiffel community repos to bring those commits to our Eiffel domain in Eiffel community and then run CI/CD for that. And then that could be consumed by organizations like Axis to get the Eiffel releases, for example, in Eiffel way rather than some other ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great.
But then the next step could be I can send a mail on Eiffel mail list and put some links and then see if there are any comments followed up with some meeting discussions, perhaps to talk about the details.
Yeah, that would be great. So please send a mail to the community.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your talk, Fatih.